Avroy, let's start off with how long have you been flying?
From the first license, that was before you were born. That was more than 50 years ago. But then there was a long break, and it's about 25 years, 26 years to be exact, since I got serious again, bought a little aeroplane, got PPL reinstated, and flying at an average of 50, 60 hours a year. So it's about 25 years now.
So you put some proper miles in there.
God, I think it's about 1,300 hours at this stage of the second section.
Yeah, okay. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's building up. Not enough.
And now, when was it during that flying career that you first learned about the battaliers?
Well, it's not that. Some people read about battaliers, hear about it, and that. I was contacted by Nora out of the blue and knew nothing about it. And she asked me to come and visit her. And she told me what battalier was about and what they were trying to do. And of course, I was madly impressed. At that stage, I was an honorary ranger. And so I switched the loyalties from being an Era Veldwachter to being a battalier pilot.
Okay, so rather than as some pilots do, where they learn about it and come looking for us, you were directly recruited.
Nora recruited me personally, so it's,
of course, the burning question is, what have you done with the battaliers in the time since Nora recruited you? You must have done a wealth of missions.
Well, I've been on the board for about 15 years. I think that's beyond what we're normally allowed, but I'm there. And I've done a lot of missions, very, very varied. I've done missions looking at the pollution in the Vaal River. I've done counts, people studying elephant numbers and that. I've done counts. I've done transporting animals that have been stranded. So it's been a very varied thing. I've done deliveries of gifts down to Gemsbok, Kalahari. I've done tracking when guys studying cheetahs that were collared, and he lost them in the Gemsbok, Kalahari. He had 4 or 5 cheetahs that were collared, and he'd lost them. Now you go to the Gemsbok, Kalahari in a car and try and find collared cheetahs. So I flew down there, and with the right equipment, you fly around and we track them, and then on your GPS you plot where they are, and then you go and find them again, and you can follow up with your research. So it was a very different thing from counting.
You've been there, done it, seen it all.
Well, not all. There's still a few more that I'd like to have a go at.
That's a good point. If there's a mission on your bucket list or a type of flight, what might it be?
I haven't done enough counter-poaching, and I'd like to get more involved in that. Probably buy an airplane that's quieter, so we can sneak up on the guys. But I enjoyed the elephant count, which was very precise flying when you're on a grid and you're up and down, and you have to watch what you're doing. And with counter-poaching, I'd like somebody like Raymond to teach me a bit more about it, and maybe get into some of the work he does, like in the Kruger or Pilanesberg or somewhere like that.
And you mentioned the elephants there and the precision required. Is there a standout mission or two that will linger in your memory as being the big ones for you?
Well, the interesting one, probably one of the most interesting was, it was still in the days when Nora was around. She found me on a Saturday morning, a cheetah up at All Days had been injured naturally while hunting, and they wanted to get a vet up there. So I flew the vet up to All Days, and the vet said that this cheetah was in bad condition. He's going to have to work on it a few hours. But the ranger said they found 4 cubs. So the vet stayed to look after the mother, and they put 4 6-week-old cheetah cubs in a cardboard box, and I flew them back to Johannesburg. The good thing, it was very, very, unfortunately the mother didn't survive, and we took the cheetahs, we looked after the cubs, and 2 survived and grew to full growth. 2 unfortunately died, but we salvaged 2 of them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that was fun.
Tell us about Beryl and your family. Do they allow this crazy business to go on? And are you allowed out every weekend to go and enjoy this?
Not every weekend, but Beryl loves the game as much as I do. In fact, we spend a lot of time in the bush. Besides any work that I might do with the battalion, we get out and we camp, and we go to very, very isolated places, somewhere where you might not see another person for 10 days. So we do a lot of that. But that's the extent that Beryl gets involved. The aeroplane is a no-no. She says, nothing smaller than a king air. And you can't exactly count elephants from a king air. You're going a little bit too far.
But that's great to have your family supporting your interests in environmental matters.
Now, Beryl's very much into the conservation, a bit of a birder herself and so on, but not in the little aeroplanes.
Okay.
That's a different story.
And having covered family, tell me about your fellow aviators. What if you had a message for fellow aviators regarding the battaliers, what might that be?
Look, the big thing about flying, anybody who flies, it's a passion. And the guys love to fly, man. And they come to an airport, if they haven't got anything definite to do, they come to the airport, they get in the plane, they do a couple of circuits, and they come down and have coffee. And it's very nice that you've been in an airplane and you've remained familiar with the controls and what you're doing and so on. But you're achieving very little. You get out and you go and try to search for, if you're counterpunching, or if you're doing an educational thing, or you're doing something constructive, if you're taking a scientist out to check, is that effluent going into the river or isn't it? And you're there, you're the pilot, and you're giving him the opportunity, giving an aerial perspective of what's happening on the ground. And then you come back and then you have coffee. It's much more enjoyable because you've actually achieved something. So, the guys who've got time and who've got aeroplanes, it's a very worthwhile project.
Well, that does sound encouraging. Last question, then we let you go.
Yeah.
Similarly to encouraging pilots to come and join us, would you have a word for benefactors and philanthropists that would like to support the battaliers?
Yeah, a very definite thing. You know, I get a lot of literature out of the States, and I've just had an IRS report which shows some major organizations raising money, and ultimately, when the smoke clears, 5% of the money collected goes to the actual project. In the battaliers, for every rand that anybody chips in, the pilots put in 6 to 7 rand. So we're taking the money coming to us and we're multiplying it by 7. So most of it comes in, and the money is well spent. And of course, all of that comes up in the reports and in the achievements. The battalier has won and been recognized internationally on a number of occasions with several awards for the terrific work that has been done by the battaliers, by the pilots, and they've been strongly supported. When you think of an organization that contributes, the pilots contribute 40 million rand in time and aeroplane use to conservation, as opposed to a couple of million that's come from contributors, from supporters. You can see the ratio there, and you can see how benefactor, how the people contributing to us, their money is being well spent. You know, yeah, I've made the point about the major cost is contributed by the pilots themselves. It's their airplane, it's their time, it's their fuel, it's contributed by them. And I did a project a little while ago. And a young girl from America and a woman from Valpro in South Africa lecturing in Botswana on, we need to save the vultures. You've got to stop the killing of vultures. And we did a 10-day trip around Botswana. I flew a total of 29 hours. And I picked these 2 girls up at Brits. And at the end of the 10 days, we got back to Brits, and I dropped them off there and the little American girl who came from one of the zoos in America working on this project with Valpro, and she gave me a letter thanking me for the safe flying and for the information and for getting them around. And she gave me with this letter in an envelope. I got home and I opened the envelope, and she gave me a tip of 100 rand. You know, so...
Well, how come I hadn't heard of that story?
No,
That's brilliant.
In relation to my 29 hours, 10 days away from home and office, and flying in an airplane. So it was 100 rands, not dollars. Not dollars, it was 100.